ask them, okay, boys and girls, here we have a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana. Which one is not like the others? Every single time they get it, okay, it's the banana. A child can tell you it's always the same kind. National Geographic ran an article about wolf to woof, how dogs evolve from wolves. I agree, but it's not evolution. It's a variety of the same kind, and they're still interfertile. And that's what the Bible says the kind definition was, those that can bring forth. So nothing new was created. The Bible says they bring forth after his kind, and if you got an exception to that, I'd like to see it. Variations happen, but they are limited. Farmers have been trying for years to get bigger pigs, but they're never going to get a pig as big as Texas. There are limits. Roaches down where I live in Florida become resistant to pesticides after a while. Like bacteria become resistant to drugs. I agree. But the roaches will never become resistant to a sledgehammer. Okay, there is a limit. And the bacteria have limits to how far they can vary within their already existing gene code. They always produce the same kind of plant or animal. That's not really evolution because the information was already present in the gene code. No new information is added. Real evolution would be new information. How long would the Chihuahuas last in the real world, huh? All these varieties that we get, if it wasn't for somebody protecting them, they wouldn't survive. Turn all the Chihuahuas loose back into the woods. They'd run up to the wolf. Yip, 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 crunch. End of gene pool, right? Genetic information is always lost, not added. Real evolution means an increase in genetic complexity. I defy anybody to show me where that's happened and produced any changes in the population. I grew up in Illinois, corn country. We got so many kinds of corn, they number them. But you can crossbreed your corn from now till the cows come home, and you'll always get corn. You will never get a hamster or a tomato or a whale to grow on your corn stalk, okay? It ain't gonna happen. Variety of dogs happen, I agree. This Irish textbook calls it divergent evolution. They say the poodle, the terrier, and the collie had a common ancestor. Oh, come on, it's still a dog. Giving it a fancy name doesn't change the facts. It's not divergent evolution, it's a variety of dog. That's deceptive. See, they're going to give this as evidence for evolution, and then the kid psychologically is going to think the whole theory's been proven, when nothing could be further from the truth. This Mexican textbook says the zebra and the horse had a common ancestor. I agree, and it looked like a horse. Four-wheel drive, genuine leather upholstery, all the standard equipment. Okay, it was a horse. They got big horses and little horses today, all kinds of them. And it's interesting, horses, they're limits, they're limited. There's some folks in California that have contests. They crossbreed horses, zebras, donkeys. They get zorses, zonkies, zeonies, z-donks, and chibras. Here's their website. They're all interbreeding. Okay, guess what that proves? They probably came from the original kind. A horse. There's a bunch of zebroids running around. In the Kentucky Derby in the last 100 years, they've gone from an average winning speed of 127 seconds down to 123 seconds. Now, back in the early days, they got some low times turned in back then, too. But let me ask you a question. How much money would you guess has been spent on the Kentucky Derby trying to breed faster horses? Millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Now, I don't know if they've reached the absolute limit or not. I don't know. But I suspect they're getting kind of close. And the point is, they're still horses, and there seems to be a stone wall here. You can't go faster. If you really want to win the Kentucky Derby, why don't you breed wings on your horse and fly around the track in 12 seconds? All I'm trying to point out is, variations certainly happen, but they're limited, and the evolutionist does not want to confess or admit there are limits. He wants to imagine that it can go on forever indefinitely. Well, you just go ahead and imagine all you want, but keep your religion out of the school system. There's a variety of cows, no question. They probably had a common ancestor. It was a cow. There's a bunch of chickens. What kind of chicken you want? You want to get cherry eggers, brown leghorns, golden comets? This magazine that sells chicken says, boys and girls, jungle fowl are the original bird from which all varieties and strains of domesticated chickens are derived. You know, all the chickens had a common ancestor. Guess what it was? Chicken. Yeah, that's the point. Textbooks will tell the kids that the peppered moth is evidence for evolution. They counted the moths on the trees. They said it was 95% light moths and 5% black. Then, so the story goes, they burned coal in the factories and the trees turned black. And they counted the moths again, you know, renewed their government grant, and found out it's now 5% light and 95% black. The truth of the matter is the whole story is a phony. It didn't happen, okay? The guy glued dead moths on the trees to take that picture for your textbook, okay? After 40 years of watching, they found 2 moths on the trees. 2. What's 95% of 2? But they still keep teaching this in the books, even though it's been proven wrong years ago. Tulsa Zoo, a couple of months ago I was there, still has this up as a display. Come on, take that down and tear that page out of your book. That's not evidence for evolution. You want more on the peppered moth, get the website iconsofevolution.com. There's a bunch on there about this topic. Textbooks will tell you, kids, you've got a vestigial organ called the appendix. You don't need it anymore. Well, that's simply a lie. You do need your appendix, okay? It is not vestigial. There are no vestigial organs. Your appendix is part of your immune system. Now, if you take out your appendix, it's true you can still live, okay? But you will have a higher susceptibility for quite a few diseases. Did you know you can live without both your legs and both your eyes and both your arms? That doesn't prove you don't need them. The fact that you can live without something does not prove it is vestigial, and that certainly is not evidence for evolution. Think about it. This textbook says the snake has vestigial reduced hind legs. Oh, they're lying to you. Those little claws right there are used in mating so they can maneuver each other into position. They don't have any arms, you know. This textbook says many organisms retain traces of their evolutionary history. For example, the whale retains pelvic and leg bones as useless vestiges. Whales have a vestigial pelvis and leg bone that serve no purpose. They have hind limb bones that have no function. This is in textbooks all across the world. Just imagine whales walking around is true. What are they talking about? They're talking about those bones right there. Just imagine the whale walking around. I can't imagine. It says the whale's pelvis has no apparent function. The whale's pelvis is evidence of its evolution from four-legged land-dwelling mammals. This is simply a lie, okay? Those bones are necessary, there are muscles attached to those specialized bones to allow the whales to reproduce. It has nothing to do with walking on land. It has to do with getting more baby whales. So the guys that are writing this in their textbooks are either extremely ignorant about whale anatomy, and they should not be writing a book about it, and certainly shouldn't be teaching about it, or they're lying to you, trying to give you evidence for their theory. That's not evidence for the theory. Those are not vestigial pelvises. Any more than your kneecap, since it's not attached to other bones, is vestigial. Okay, or the hyoid bone, it's not attached either, but it's not vestigial. These bones are anchor points that muscles attach to for reproduction. This textbook says humans have a tailbone that is of no apparent use. Its vestigial structures is viewed as evidence for evolution. Oh, the tailbone is not vestigial. I was in a debate in Alabama with the president of the North Alabama Atheist Association. He got up in front of God and everybody and said, folks, we got proof for evolution. Humans have a tailbone they no longer need. I said, Mr. Patterson, I taught biology and anatomy. I happen to know there are 9 little muscles that attach to the tailbone, without which you cannot perform some valuable functions. I won't tell you what they all are, but trust me, you need those muscles. I said, now, if you think the tailbone is vestigial, I will pay to have yours removed. Bend over. That's not a vestigial tailbone, okay? And by the way, kids, if any biology professor or any anatomy professor ever tells you the tailbone is vestigial, my offer is still good. I will pay to have theirs removed. Tell them put up or shut up. It is not vestigial, okay? This textbook says the coccyx at the end of the human vertebral column is no apparent function and is thought to be the remainder of bones that once occupied the long tail of a tree-living ancestor. They told me when I was a kid, man used to have a tail, but he lost it because we didn't need it. I thought, didn't need it. Have you ever thought how handy a tail would be? Have you ever come to the door with 2 sacks of groceries? And you could open that thing up and walk right in there, you know. It's not vestigial. That's a lie. And a lot of functions for those tailbones, all right? There are no vestigial structures, and if there were, that would be the opposite of evolution. We could talk for hours, and we're going to quit here in a few minutes, but all the evidence that they're using, like loose